We're good? Okay, this is the June Arlington Board of Education regular meeting. Tonight's meeting is being conducted under the Nebraska Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is posted at the back of the room. Let's call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and take roll, please.
Sorry, it's bouncing all over the place here.
Aye.
Jason Arp,
Here.
Cassie Klesner.
Here.
Chase Cradaville.
Here.
Brian Locker,
Here.
Matt O'Daniel,
Here.
Shannon Wilmer.
All right, very good. We have a quorum. Let's say the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is item 1.4. It's the approval of our regular meeting agenda this evening. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Chase and Jason. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmer. Yes. Jason Arp,
Yes.
Cassie Klesner,
Yes.
Chase Cradaville.
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
Very good. Motion carries. The second item on our agenda tonight is the public forum session. If anybody wishes to speak this evening, I know at least one of you signed in there in the book. Thank you very much. And this is that section of the meeting. So if you'd like to speak,
Okay, hi, I'm Nancy
Please
Kennedy.
do.
I'm a sub-para up here at school. I just need some clarification from the board in regards to one of your policies and then a comment that was put in the Arlington Citizen. I don't understand, but it's Article 8, Policy Number 8152, your standing committee on negotiations. It's one of your, okay. It says the full Board of Education may also include selected administrators on the negotiations team. I know negotiations are over with, but I wanted this clarified. The Board of Education reserves the right to appoint a chief spokesperson who is not a member of the board to represent the board in negotiations. Is this true?
You can hire like a.
yeah, an
people hire
attorney,
a
an
law
outside
firm.
attorney, or
Well, does it have to be an attorney or can it be someone who is actually from the school when you do your negotiations to discuss things that they may need or want improved or et cetera, or is that not allowed?
I think that policy gives the board leeway to hire a representative to negotiate on behalf of the school district, is how I've always interpreted it. I'd have to go back and read it again. It's been, gosh, a year since we've looked at it, I think.
Okay, so when you negotiate, you don't meet with maybe one person from the custodian group who is representing all the custodians here at
We
the
have
school?
not, no,
No?
we haven't.
Uh-uh. Is there some reason why you don't? That's a part of negotiations and contracts, isn't it?
I can get you an answer.
I mean,
I'm happy to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been asked me,
Okay.
you know, who decides all of this?
Sure, yeah. Let
Is
me
it
look at the
the-
policy and
Yeah,
I'm happy to email you an answer. Fine.
yeah, it's not just, you know, it's your kitchen people, it's your paras, it's, you know, your custodians, it might be your bus drivers, whoever, but there's different groups that have different ideas and wants and needs and, you know, so I was just wondering if there's a little negotiation with these people also, not just the negotiations committee.
Let me get you an answer for that, okay?
Okay, I mean, it's, yeah,
Sure.
appreciate it, thank
Yeah,
you.
You bet.
Did you leave your email address, ma'am?
No, but I will.
We have-
Okay,
I will forward it to him.
she says.
all right, thanks a lot.
Good question.
Anybody else see me?
Hello,
Yes, ma'am?
I'm Maggie Pfeiffer.
Hi.
I live right down the road from Matt O'Daniel.
Uh-huh.
Been in the community for 47 years now when I married my husband, who's lived here all his life. I raised 4 kids, and we had the most amazing bus drivers that we could possibly get. They were neighbors. And in the end, Sylvia Green traveled all over the place. Took us down to Lincoln, took us on field trips, followed every athletic event, didn't she? The thing about Sylvia is that she went in and she sat and she watched and she supported our teams. She supported our players. And she knew every single one of them to the point where she was invited to graduations because she was so close to everyone. Now, right now, I see at least 3 people I know that were graduates of Arlington High School that had a bus driver that was a community member that probably supported them in a very similar way. Oh, 5, 4, sorry. I was pretty disturbed when I heard that the possibility of hiring in somebody from Omaha to drive our buses for our kids. It disturbed me because we have a community here. We still are a small community. We're a dedicated community. And the bus drivers that we have here now may not be personal friends of mine like Sylvia was in the end, but they are dedicated to driving for these kids from Arlington. Some of them are fully employed by you doing all the extracurricular activities because they want to do them and also because they want to be employed by the school. I think it's a terrible violation to the community. I think it's a terrible disrespect to the community who voted you board members on to even think about it. I'm a taxpayer, so I'm your employer. We pay over half of our taxes, $30,000 a year, and we aren't big farmers. Think of all the taxes that some of these farmers put in to run this school. A lot of those farmers don't know what's going on right now because, for one thing, a lot of people don't get the papers anymore. A lot of farmers don't FaceTime, don't do emails. And I really, really think that if they had any idea of what you guys were even considering here, that there would be a real outlash of indignation that we have supported a community like this for so long. Are we ready to start taking steps to pull somebody in from Omaha that is going to sit out in his bus and watch a movie on his iPhone while our kids play basketball or football? Is he going to take the time to even care whether he knows the name of the kids that he's driving around to different towns? No, come on. That isn't going to happen. That isn't going to happen because they're just an employee. Now, your bus drivers are not. They are dedicated to the kids. We lost a really good one last year. We lost a really good one on our route. And you know who we lost it to? Loganview. Loganview paid him more than we were able to pay him. Loganview. Now, why is that? Is Loganview a much bigger school where they can afford so much more? Or maybe they just realized what a good bus driver he was. It was a great loss. And it slipped through with hardly anybody knowing it. Because again, the communication anymore is done in a way that the majority of us out there that really still care a lot don't know what's going on unless we sit through your meetings. But I guess that's what's going to take. I'm here to appeal. If you cannot at least negotiate a little bit more with the bus drivers? Can there not be an attempt to try and find a middle ground? I would really say that I think the majority of the community would rather that you try than to cut them out. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you take off, can I have you sign
Sure.
the sheet up there, please? And I would just comment that the board's position has always been the best solution to this would be to maintain the drivers we have in the community, and anybody that holds that position or opinion, I think will be pleased with how this outcome is turning out, so.
Thank you.
Anyone else see me? Okay. Let's move on then into item 3.1 is our consent agenda. Item 3.1 is the previous minutes, 3.2 is financial reports and resignations. Financial reports, of course, have been posted for some time. I've been through them. Dr. Lewis, is there anything that you would like to highlight in there, or any questions?
Sorry, I'm controlling my fingers here. You see, we did pay a bill for the basketball hoop strap that we approved on our, it was either April or May board meeting, we approved that. So you'll see a bill for $11,854 there.
I have a question on that real quick.
Yes.
Sorry. Was that just for the straps or was that the straps and the install?
It was the straps and
It was all of it.
It was
Okay,
the whole
I was
thing, and it was both gyms, so it was
Okay.
like 11 hoops or something like that.
Okay.
Yep, and they were in and out in like morning and an afternoon, we had that taken care of. And I believe that was the only thing that was out of the ordinary, but that was pre-approved. And we did, we wouldn't normally do this, but we had a garage door repair at the bus barn. It was a repair of several doors. You'll see that as a hand payable, and we wouldn't normally do that, but he came in and requested his payment early so he could pay a supplier. So we went ahead and took care of it. And I reminded him that when you do work at the school, you have to wait for the next board meeting for that to be approved. We did pay interest on the bonds for the regular bond and the Nikisi bond. So those are interest only payments that come out every June. Any other questions?
Jen, I didn't see usually the percentage for year-to-date versus comparable for last year.
I did not put it on this month because I was just gonna wait and put it on for last end of the month, in July, just because it's not really, I mean, we're at the end of the year and it's not really changing all that much anymore.
Okay.
So I just didn't know. And I can
I actually have
Put
a
that-
full report. if you
put
want
that
to
out.
hear it.
Did it, if you know off the top of your head, did it change much as compared to the last report?
Our receipts increased a little bit
Yeah,
because we
I
had
think
a large payment.
percentages of the actual paid outs are change about 1 or 2% every month, so.
But our receipts did increase to like 80%, so our 80% of our tax asking we now received on the,
You're looking at $2 million.
yeah, it was
May.
over. Yeah.
Or whatever.
We always have a large payment in May, so that always catches up, and I think I've said that along. We're a little bit behind right now, but the real kick from the increase hadn't been received yet, so that's now up, so we've received 80%.
And we'll get that out to you guys and then I will put it on the next board meeting as well.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I have a question on, I noticed that Fremont Chamber, we pay for a membership fee. What is that for?
We're a member of like the Blair Chamber and the Fremont Chamber of Commerce, so we're invited to their events and we're listed in their business listings and things like that.
Okay, so more just for like an advertisement kind of
It's
thing?
a bit of an advertisement, and then I've attended some of their workshops and their meetings that they have.
Okay.
Lunch and learns or whatever they call them, so.
I also noticed a late fee from Welks Bank. What is that?
It is the Shell card, which we have not been using lately because we've been going to Casey's and the Shell card. I didn't realize there was a payment on there, and they're ones that are, very strict about.
Oh. Okay.
And they don't actually send a bill. You have to. go
Yeah,
and
it's all
retrieve it.
online.
So you
Yeah.
don't know that you have.
I didn't know
if
somebody
anybody has
used the
used
shell
it,
card,
it's
so.
a shell then.
Gotcha. Fun. Okay.
Any other questions regarding the consent agenda? Then I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Shannon. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Let's vote, please.
Shannon Moore. Yes. Jason Art.
Yes.
Kelsey Plesner.
Yes.
Chase Cradaville.
Yes.
Brian Locker.
Yes.
Matt O'Day.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 4 is the review of our annual district plan and district goals.
I'm going to apologize on some of these, the numbering got off. So you'll see like the first one, the goal area budget strategies from 6 jumps to 9. It was because in my drive, for some reason, the December version and the March version disappeared out of my drives. So I had to pull it off of the last board meeting when we reviewed in March and convert. It was a whole process. Anyway, numbering is off and I didn't get it fixed. So, but we'll just kind of look at the light blue text is what we've added. So in the goal area of budget, we have additional funding coming from the state because of the governor's education funding plan that passed. So that is approximately $1,500. Well, it's not approximately, but the amount, like in a nutshell, $1,500 per student. So for us, that is immediately like a little bit more than $850,000. So that's really nice to be able to pass that on to the taxpayers. And then in arrears, following the conclusion of this school year, special education reimbursement will be back up to where it was intended to be. Well, it was intended to be 100%, but back up to 80%. So that will be coming for the following year. Growth projections, we would really like to stay under the allowable amount of our budget to grow. So and that's our goal anyway, so we don't have to exceed. So the governor's plan also came with what they're calling a soft cap, which is 3%, and then like an additional factor based on like your real growth and things like that. So it looks like ours will be 3.2%. But I can't say that for certain yet because the budget document isn't out yet. So as soon as they make the changes to the budget document that we have to get from the auditor of public accounts, I'll be more for sure what that growth percentage is. We're allowed to exceed that in the governor's plan by an additional 6%, which would just require a supermajority vote of the board. So we have to have a 5.6 vote to exceed that a little bit if we needed to. We don't really want to do that. So anyway, we'll see how that shakes out, but it's good news for the budget.
Have they given us an anticipated date of when those will be available?
It's usually, it says mid-June. I went and
Okay.
looked at
Yeah.
on the website last Friday because I kind of wanted to get started on it and it said, check back later.
Okay.
And they always tell us mid-June. So knowing this year though that there's laws that change what goes on the budget
Yeah,
document,
that's what
I'm
I'm wondering.
anticipating it might take a little longer. And I'm one who's like, oh, right, there's things have changed. Now I really want to get them on the budget document and see what those are to look. Community engagement goal. The Arlington Education Foundation is exploring helping us pay for a digital yearbook to put in the front. So probably by the new gym where most people would look at for athletic events and activities, all of those different things. So we're still looking into that. We met last week, but we really only had one bid to look at, and without Dan and Scott were both on vacation, they're kind of my go-to guys because they know the technology and the software pieces behind it. So they weren't available for me to talk to that week. So we pushed it off, but our next meeting will be in like July. So we'll talk about it again there. In the area of facilities, we've got some things on the board meeting this evening that would maybe free up some storage for us. So that's what we're working on there. In the area of student performance, The admin team has discussed moving to the state of Nebraska, their frameworks accreditation process versus Cognia. There's not a, there used to be, so Cognia was advanced ed, was, what was it before it was advanced ed? Then it was North Central accreditation, so it's changed names multiple times and it keeps changing platforms. Like every 5 years, you have a new platform to learn to upload. And then their visits are longer, they are more expensive when you have a visit year, and their overall accreditation fees are quite a bit higher. So this would save the district a little bit money. It would streamline the actual accreditation process, but it wouldn't water it down. It helps, I mean, they've got a great process through the Nebraska frameworks system. This is Dr. Morgan and I have been on visits before and seen, yes, it's an adjustment.
Okay.
We've been
Almost.
on visits. I've done lots of visits. I've been team members on visits and he's on lots of frameworks visits. And Jackie, I took along to West Point, which is a school of similar size.
Yeah.
So she could see what a more streamlined and focused and intentional process that seems to be versus what we had to do for that Cognia accreditation. So that wouldn't really impact or change what or how teachers are teaching or anything like that. But when it came to that, the gathering of data and the evidence-based practice, it really streamlined things. So the team and I were talking about that. So it'd be for cost and efficiency savings would be a change. So we'll continue to talk about that. And I'm gonna talk to the state and see what that would look like. So it'll probably come up for consideration for the board sometime soon. And then behavioral and mental health goals. We have teams attending several mental health conferences actually. So I took Mrs. Toft, I'm sorry, not Mrs. Toft, I took Mrs. Betty and Mrs. Stanislav to the Nebraska State School Mental Health Conference in Kearney last week. And I believe they're attending the one at the ESU, the ESU 3 this week. So we have lots of mental health things going on. And what I didn't get added on there today is Mrs. Toft was working on an extension of the grant funding from the Systems of Care Behavioral Health Grant and looking at some additional funding there and how we could use those resources. So she was filling out some paperwork for that today. Do you know, Erin, did she come to any conclusions on that? We're still working on it. Okay. So anyway, lots of things happening this summer as far as teachers getting and other staff members, not just teachers, but our counselors getting additional resources and learning new materials and things like that for the mental health needs of our staff and students.
Yeah. So we'll be back into these in September. I mean, just as a reference, we look at them 4 times a year. Look at the updates and then of course at our retreat normally as well. So anybody have any thoughts, comments, or questions? You know, our district goals should guide what we do on a macro level as a board. So they're important. And it's sort of our report card as well, the list of things that we accomplished under each category. So it's always good to see progress on this. Okay. If there are no questions then, Mr. Shada, do you want to lead off the principal's reports?
You put that in your
Who's your
phone?
first this month?
You put that as a note? Yes, I have to.
It's the entire athletic report.
It is, right?
Yeah.
One shot. I do enjoy it. I'll probably just spend a little bit of time looking at the first couple pages, Aaron. Okay. That first one's activity. So it's broken down in 2 parts, activity and athletic. So these are non-athletic. Participation, and so this year the girls 9 through 12 is 72%. That's up 2% from last year. We're at 70, obviously. So good amount of ladies participating in our clubs and activities. Boys are up 4% at 66, and so we've seen some real good gains. I know nobody likes to talk about COVID anymore, but activities were hit so hard during that last year we were still coming out of getting kids reconnected to these different activities. And so we seem to be back to where that is now, where it really always lived, if that makes sense to you there.
Mhm.
So you have that 57 number up there and the 62. And so then, and the boys, I guess, have been about the same at 66% there. So activity wise. So that's a positive there. Questions on activities. I'd say what's also impressive there when you see the number of them that they're involved in. So
Oh, I know.
I won't use their names, but it's amazing being in 7+. And that young man on the boys' side was in 9 activities and 2 sports. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So and then you see where most of our folks lie doing a couple sports and a couple activities in that 1 to 2, 3 to 4 range there. So that's really great there. Girls the same way, looking at the same numbers there. So pretty impressive. Obviously, it takes in the school our size. We need lots of kids doing lots of different things. So we need you to be out for a fall sport and then join the 1-act play in the evening and things like that too. Middle school athletic participation is the next page. 7-8. So we are back at overall 81% again. I don't know how we have the same percentage again. That's awesome. So it's a bigger number too. That's a 125. I just had to do the math a couple times there. There's quite a few middle schoolers. The bigger group, that 7th grade is a big group. So that's why that looks different there. It's fantastic. We do traditionally are more participation in middle school. I have a lot of kids trying things, being involved for the first time, maybe in a school organization. A lot of them have done the kid club level, but track and field, there's not a lot doing that. So we have a lot of kids that do that. We're at 60 again this year that we're out for track. So those are great things. And then quite a few that are in the different choirs as well. 9-12. Girls were up 7% this year, so we have 68% of our girls involved. Last year was 61. That's fantastic. That is way ahead of the national average. Way ahead of that, so that's awesome. The big concern right now, talked to a Class A school, I'll leave their names out, that was here today, and we're going to have the same number of girls out for basketball as that Class A school is.
Wow.
So that kudos to our girls. I mean, it's harder and harder to put yourself out there, especially as a young female these days. And so we're really proud of them and want to continue that. And credit to the staff that coaches those people too. So, and thanks for adopting like girls wrestling that has more kids out, things like that. Boys were down 4%, but once again, that could be 2 kids, right? And a percentage number like that. So 60% this year, last year was 64. Overall, the boy girl were up 2 total % there in terms of participation. And so overall 64%. So happy about that. The 3 sports, and we wish that number would get higher. It's harder and harder to be a 3-sport athlete this day and age. It really is.
Sure.
It really is. And so a couple of things I want to highlight. Thank my colleagues, Dr. Lewis, Mr. Kingston, Doc Morgan, for working over 188 events this past year. There's 179 student days, so that's more days than we have kids in school. So, and we appreciate you guys going to Saturdays and all sorts of other days too. So, other things that are happening just currently, just as quick reminders, we've had a lot of team camps. Fortunate to host one today with basketball, but all our teams are going different places right now. We have a full golf outing that's happening this Friday at 10 o'clock at North Bend. And so all money raised there goes to the 13 different activities, all divided out evenly. So on pace to have our biggest year. We're pretty excited about that. And then tomorrow night is a free sports physicals. Beacom Health is a company out of Fremont that reached out to us. 8th through 12th grade, the 7th graders still need to go see their physicians and get all those shots and things like that they're not excited about. But we'll have that tomorrow night at 6 that people can just enter here. So parents have had messages. We put some social media posts out there too. So questions on all those things. And then I guess obviously below that you can see attachments to their reports and all those things.
Mr. Shader, who's taking over for Mr. Brand on Skills USA?
So Mr. Hart was his assistant, so he'll take the lead role, and then Mr. Daigle, who's taking Mr. Brent's job, will be the assistant there. So good question.
And are you hearing any feedback from students on any additional, I know we've talked about some additional athletics that they'd like to see, activities or sports that you hear a lot about? I know soccer's always been anything additional other than that.
Not this year, no. I mean, soccer's the most recent one. When we looked into that, as the board knows, Fremont wasn't really interested there. They don't, I don't know if they cut kids from Fremont, but they're full, and so they're not looking to take more. Outside of that, no. Girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the state and the nation, so that's awesome that we're a part of that. No, other than that, swimming's a great thing too that we've had there, so good question.
Usually this is a question, but I've read enough of your reports as for the statement now. I guess the data strongly shows that kids that participate in multiple activities after school do better in the classroom too, right? And it's something that Arlington can offer that a lot of schools can't. Our size, our community, closeness to the community, athletics is pretty special, I think, and the clubs after, and they're well supported. And, we can get the LA and FFA and all the others. It means something to parents and families and kids. So
Yeah.
it's really, really great that we have so much participation because
I
a lot of people
appreciate
put a
that.
lot into it as well.
Yeah, we were just on a call the other day with the company that we partner with and telling what we do, and not only that, but they're getting the college credits to the Metro, and they were just amazed that School Arts Ed is doing that at the rate that we're doing those pieces and involved in what we just went through.
Any questions for Mr. Shada? Any more questions for Mr. Shada? No? Okay.
I can listen to these two guys, otherwise they'll harass me the rest of the week. So.
Okay, that's.
So you can't take
Just-
it out.
I feel like you just opened that door.
Oh, I was gonna get it either way. So.
Mr. Fingston,
Yes,
what you got, sir?
well, segued right into my report about, you said FFA and FBLA and everything else. It came out in the speech, in the graduation speech, that Mrs. Koger is the Nick Saban of FBLA. So there is a lot of truth to that. We have great people running these programs for kids, so.
For sure.
We have the most students going to nationals this year than we ever have. We have 19 going. So Mrs. Coder's providing a lot of updates and just conversation about how they're doing, and we're excited on how they represent us. That is at the end of the month. We have some state FFA horse evaluation results. Ultimately, the team members are here. They're listed below, and then kind of how the team did, and then maybe if we had a state champion, Erica Cruikshank, and how she did, and somehow the others individually did, and some pictures there below there. And then we have Morehouse Microsoft Office user certified students. So that was kind of the last go around for that this year. We got summer school going. Ultimately, I think this year we just have retrieving credit and advancing credit where it applies. And then one of the things that's coming from the legislative session is LB 705. One of the things from that is a requirement for all students to apply for the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. That will be required of not this year's seniors, but next year's seniors. There's some opt-outs and different things that way, but ultimately, I think the idea behind it is to have students, to have families fill that out to see if and what they could qualify for, that maybe helps offset some of the post-secondary costs of schooling or trade schools or different things that way. So anyway, we'll see how that kind of plays out, but that'll be something new that we are required to do and have students and families do. So we already do things like that through our Apply to College Day and all that kind of stuff. Kind of opens up, if I remember right, beginning of October. So we do these things already for those who are, and we encourage everybody to fill out for free student aid, but this kind of mandates that a little bit more. So it doesn't really change a whole lot of what we're doing, other than making sure that everybody does it, unless we have them opt out in whatever way that they would be able to. Okay.
Questions? Mr. Pinkston? Mr. Cummins, no? Dr. Morgan?
Yeah, well, we finished sixth grade business this year. They had a profit of $483, which is a good profit. That goes into that Always for Kids Fund, which helps pay for field trips and things like that. We had our celebration days to finish out the end of the year. Lots of grade levels venture down to the parks in town, the park in town, do awards and snacks and things like that. Sixth grade graduation happened. 48 sixth graders are moving on up to seventh grade. Yeah, get excited. We also did, we do Move Up Day every year. Sixth grade moved up and joined seventh graders, and they did some roundtable discussions. So the sixth graders got to ask seventh grade questions. The discussions were facilitated by middle school staff. So that's good. And then kindergarten through fifth grade, we're able to meet teachers in the next grade. And then Mrs. Dobson, who's joining our team next year, was able to come and meet some of those students too. So that's exciting. We held our first annual talent show. There's some pictures there for you. Lots of fun. We have some really talented folks here at Arlington. So there's a few good pictures there. So we've got, we had our, well, this is the second year we did bounce houses and celebrating of accomplishments to finish out the year as well. So we had those and some ice cream treats, which are wonderful. Track and field days up there. K through 2 participate in kind of a fun field day activities, sack races, obstacle courses, and then 3rd through 6 looks more like a traditional track meet. So they have lots of fun, lots of hard work. We did do a last week luncheon. This was allegedly, this was a thing that happened in the past, and it was brought back by Julie and the lunch staff, and joined by a couple grill masters there. Now I'm sad Mr. Jada left early, so he didn't get this picture, but K through 12 all ate outside. They played games, and you can see some high schoolers in the Gaga ball pit. Good stuff. And then we took a team to Battle of the Books at the ESU. 3rd through 5th graders, they read a whole slew of books and then answer questions, and they have activities they have to do and creations they have to make kind of on the spot. And so they did a really nice job and placed in some different categories there. So I think that's all. Is that all? There's their picture. Well, that's the Battle of the Books kids. Oh, and I've got some more. There's some data. You know me. I would like to tell you in all fairness, these are not apples to apples, though. The data pieces are interesting to say the least. But it all looks about the same, mostly. But yeah, we're working with the state to understand the data better. Can I say that?
You can say, that's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
It's a different format or a different source?
They changed the rules as we were playing the game. So they told us one thing in the fall, and then a couple weeks later, they said, oh, but also this. And then in January, it said, never mind, we're only going to accept this. And then after the test was done, they're like, well, if you want to suppress that score, use that one instead, which we didn't give because they told us they weren't going to take it. So the state changed the data plan, the assessment plan 4 times in the course of the school year. So that's why we can't really say for certainty that it lines up with what was reported in 2021 and 21-22 because it changed the rules on us. As the game was
format
being
of the
played.
test,
Format,
they
the way
changed.
They changed the adaptability of the test.
In January.
In January.
So even to say like our scores from fall to spring are, like I struggle with confidence in
Mhm.
that
Making
stuff.
decisions based on, and that's the NDE, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that is the department.
It's a real question, actually, yeah.
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 It is a department, so.
Hmm.
So, but there's some data points for you. But for us, it looks very like it trends all the same. So
Kind of,
yeah, pretty close to the same. So
What is, like, what's the scale?
Another really great question.
This is the risk score.
This is the RIT score, but they, yeah.
All right, moving on, I guess. I don't know.
It's got 300.
What
is
is
it?
it?
And
This
in
is
all
not the
fairness-
growth, this is the risk.
And in all fairness, like the scores from 17, 18, 18, 19 were MAP scores, which is a product that's produced by NWEA, which is the same company that produces the Nebraska, the NSCAS test. And so they were telling us up until a hot minute ago that it tracks that the RIT scores from MAP track plus or minus 1 point. So you would, with reasonable consideration,
Of the
believe that those
NSCAS,
should all,
right.
yeah, NSCAS and MAP should be about the same.
But they weren't.
Now they're saying, well, it's more like 10 points plus or minus, which is a huge thing. When you're saying
Sure.
like a 7th grader should grow 2 points in a year, 10 points is a huge difference.
So at the beginning of the year, they were telling us you can take either the NSCA score or the MAP growth score. You can give all of those tests 3 times, or each of those tests 3 times a year. So you can choose which one you want to submit. So you do a fall, you do a winter, you do a spring. You can give the MAP and the NSCAs.
Well, MAP
At the
wasn't
same
part of the,
MAP wasn't part of the reporting.
right,
at the
it was
time.
just NSCAS, but you take your best of your 3 shots.
And then in January, they said, nope, never mind, only the spring score. And then after we gave the NSCAS spring score, where the growth scores didn't align well with the RIT scores, it was all wonky. They said, well, if you want to suppress that and just submit your MAP scores instead of your NSCAS, we'll allow it. But we didn't give it because they told us they weren't going to accept it. They were only going to accept NSCAS.
We thought testing kids with 2 different assessments that were supposed to be the same 3 times a year was a waste of time and resources.
And we thought we knew
So
the
we
rules
got
of the
just-
game. Anyway,
We'll figure out what's going on.
we're confident that other schools are having the same reaction to their data that we are.
Okay, a
Shannon?
different question.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You think Dad from your
She's
side?
like,
of the
yeah,
world? Yeah.
Sounds about right, right? Right, Shannon?
Yeah, I have a fun question. What were these dinosaurs doing on the stage?
That's awesome.
They were the surprise guest at the end. They did the Macarena.
Ooh.
And the entire gym joined in. It was very fun. It was very fun.
Rainbows and unicorns down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, you know it.
You in the
That's what we
picture.
like.
Again.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Dr. Morgan. That takes us into our superintendent's report. Got a fair amount of stuff in here today. Dr.
I do,
Lewis, do you
yeah.
want to walk us through it, please?
I will try. The LB 705, which was the Christmas tree bill,
Mhm.
passed. A lot of those things we're going to look at in the form of policies later on
Right,
in the board meeting, so I'll kind of just breeze over them. So I attached that there. It included behavioral health awareness training by 26, 27 for all teachers, administrators, teachers. So we're doing a lot of that already, but we'll see what that comes to because we have a couple of years before that's implemented. Larger reimbursement for SPED expenditures, so that piece ended up in the Christmas tree bill. They're not giving us money to incentivize teacher recruitment, but they're encouraging us to incentivize teacher recruitment. Competitive grant for schools security related infrastructure, so we're waiting to see what that will look like. And by competitive, it means you're going to have to apply and not everybody will get it, so we'll see what that looks like. Flexibility for structuring the computer science and technology requirements. So that's good for us. We already have a plan in place for that. Flexibility for temporary teaching certificates. Now that one is more for people coming into the state. I honestly think that one is more for spouses of military that get assigned to military bases in the state that have teaching certificates from other states where they have been. Like they've
So
been
they can
stationed in
start
South Carolina
working.
and now they're in Omaha, and so they can
except.
obtain a temporary teaching certificate and begin teaching, and they don't have to wait to go up, because with that, you don't always choose to
Right.
move, you get stationed, and so there's some flexibility there. FAFSA for all students by 24-25, what we talked about. Department of Education is taking one thing off of our plate, next year, starting next year, they will handle the textbook loan program, and it doesn't have to flow through public schools. Right now, the process is we send a list to St. Paul's and say, these are the books that we have available or the next curriculum we're buying if you want. we'll buy it and you can, and then we get reimbursed from the state for that. Now the state will just handle it. So we won't have to be basically the middleman for the curriculum that the non-public schools choose to use. Yeah, one less thing to worry about. I don't know how many people
That worked
worry
great.
about that.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Like Jen and I had to figure that out every year, so one less thing for us to do. A policy relating to behavioral intervention, behavior management, classroom management, and removal of a student from a classroom by August 21st, 2025. And then during the 23-24 school year, everyone interacting with students must have behavioral and mental health suicide awareness training. That's part of our Safe Schools trainings that are mandatory for all staff members, including like
Already.
custodians and bus drivers and kitchen staff. They all take those, so.
Currently, Yeah.
Yes, we're already on those. And we have the NASB attachments there, and then my leave log is on there. So you can kind of see where we're at on this. And I just put in vacation days that I haven't taken yet. I'm gonna try and take them to get them down to 0. I can put in the FBLA, help Mrs. Cover out as vacation days. Just because I'll be gone. I'm normally gone that week anyway, so I just included it because I won't be in the building. So try and burn those. Other than that,
it'll be relaxing.
yeah, I've seen the itinerary.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing relaxing
Not
about
so
it.
much. Yeah, I'm sure they'll be busy. Yeah.
I need to ask her, do I
Yeah,
have to
Mrs.
dress?
Cover walks really
I know
fast,
she does.
so.
I know she does, yeah. She knows all the places to go. And
Yeah, the Cover walk.
I mean, we get off, I think we get off the plane and walk 2 miles for the first thing. It might not be 2 miles, but she's got to plan it out, which is great. It's great for kids and it makes it a great experience because they get to see a lot, but it's going to be busy. And so, that's really,
Okay.
I've had a couple of medical appointments and those are 3 dates between like today and like the end of May, just some appointments that I've had. I didn't list all 3 of them on there. You know, not everybody needs to know what all the medical appointments were, so. Right. It's if I didn't violate and then, in the past month, or since last time, the meetings that I've had out of town, I believe the NERCSA Spring Conference was already on there. There were the commissioner interviews. NERCSA met with Governor Cohen. I was invited to participate in that. And then the NASBO conference, Jen and I attended mid-April, the school mental health conference last week, and the board leadership conference last week were the ones that I attended. So I guess it looks like I didn't take care of my floating holidays either. I'm going to start a little bit earlier this year. I'll probably take a couple of days off around the 4th of July earlier. Start taking a couple of days. I've always kind of reserved them, and I'll take more during the holidays this year too, with that increase. My not fear, but I'm always worried that I'm going to run out for taking a vacation in the summer. We don't always do that, so I don't always take days off during the holidays. So knowing I have that little cushion with 5 extra days this year will be helpful, and I'll make myself take some time off because I know that is important. And then the admin team discussion of the accreditation model, and we talked about that.
Yeah.
A little bit earlier, and with our board goals. So I'll have more to report on that in July, and like I said, we'll probably have to at some point in time entertain a board motion to switch accreditation models there. Used to be that the NCA model or the advanced ed model, Cognia model was more prestigious, I think. I don't think it is anymore. I don't think anybody even asks or cares anymore.
Is there a split of school districts in our, 70-30, 60-40, if you can take a while? As you know,
I think I can actually find it. How about I find that and get that to you?
sure. You can send it out
I
to
think
us.
there's more on the frameworks model than there are on the advanced ed right now, but I'm pretty sure that I can find that on the Department of Education website. If not, I can find it in a former, like in a previous email that I had that like lists out.
Yeah,
Yes.
just curious, if we're going that direction.
Yeah.
See who What else is on there?
Yep, I'll find that. for you.
Okay. That covers the superintendent's report. All right. So that brings us down into our committee reports. The buildings and grounds committee, part of the,
We did,
Or meeting?
yep, I
Okay.
didn't get that one on there, so, but, we can share out now. I'm not sure if Jason or Shannon is the chair of that, but it'll all be discussed. We'll all be discussing.
quick and pointed.
She was, yeah, you were pointing really fast, so there's that.
I'll defer.
But we, I don't know, Jason, or me, you should look this
Yeah.
gentleman. We discussed the boiler demo
Yeah.
bids, we discussed the kitchen renovation bids for the dry storage and for the tile work that needs to be replaced, and we talked, about the fridge freezer purchase.
Mhm.
The two
All
of those
items
were for
on
the
the-
kitchen, and they're all agenda items that are on, so we just made sure everybody understood the bids and the reasoning behind, like the direction Lawrence and I would like to go with which ones.
Sure.
So that'll be coming up.
okay.
So we had that one.
And we have had a little bit of school board learning. Chase and John and I spent the day in Lincoln at a leadership conference hosted by NASB and Marcia Herring. It's always learning experience. She does a good job. Some points in there about sportsmanship, kind of some hot topics, school boards around the state, things that, are happening. Some legislative updates as well. There's so much going on down there, and she did spend a lot of time on that. And a lot of Q&A about how board meetings function and operate, and what are the guidelines versus laws for things, Open Meetings Act, a lot of discussion about closed session, things like that. So it was great. It's a good refresher, and I always learn something new from Marcia. Always. So
And you made some new friends.
we did. Yep, we did. We sat next to some folks from
They're
Gary?
from
Ainsworth.
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 Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Right in our wheelhouse. And there's another one on here, Dawn and
Yeah, we talked about the school
Jen?
mental health
Mhm.
conference, but, then Jen was at the school transportation conference, and actually she came away with a lot of information from that one too, so I'll let her talk about that just a little bit.
It was a lot of, went over some crash site assessment training, which there was supposed to be a full day, that they were gonna do a full day's training on Thursday, but there wasn't enough interest to cover the cost, so they're working on trying to get that at a later date where we can take it again, so we'll be attending that once that is, coming, but then the rest, Friday was, they did a little bit of that in the morning, and then we discussed a lot of, electric and propane buses. That's the new
Yeah.
wave of the future that the government is really pushing for clean emissions. Lots of interesting facts on that.
Can you share a couple?
Sure.
Yeah.
They are good.
It was a very, very good discussion amongst the schools. An electric school bus, at this point, the base price is $375,000. The station that you would have to hook the bus up to, the tower, roughly costs about $75,000. An electric bus with a full charge has a range of about 120 miles, and that is not with the AC or the heat running or going up and down hills. And this is coming from a school that currently has one, that is using one that received a grant from the EPA.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. And a battery, which each bus has 3 batteries, is $30,000 to replace. And they're just like cell phone batteries. They deteriorate as the years go on. So,
I didn't tell me about the batteries before.
yeah, it was a very interesting conversation, that they're really, really pushing and pushing and pushing for schools to switch over to these buses. But
Did they say anything about giving them away for free? or-
one of the main comments was, we can't even give them away, because people aren't applying for the grants, because first of all, the grants are completely ridiculous, but to fill out, but yeah, people are applying, they were really pushing, like, please fill out the grants, please fill out the grants, we have money to give you.
Well, if student safety is first priority, when you think about an electric bus going around here in February up and down the hills.
Or not.
Yeah, and up and down the hills.
Oh, darn.
Yeah,
We ran out of
most
battery.
most of the schools commented that, they don't even know that they could use it as a route bus. You look at the schools from the mid part of the state to the west, and there's no way they can
Mhm.
utilize a bus like that, so.
How
So
about
that was.
propane?
Yes.
There are a couple of schools that do have propane buses. They said they are really working on trying to get some facts, and that next year at our meeting, they'd be able to share more with us, but, there's not as much, repair, they believe, on the propane buses, so that they think that they might be a little more cost effective. They did not talk about the
Yeah.
price of the propane, but I think it's pretty comparable to it. The problem is having a place to get the propane, so you have to have another tank.
Mhm.
Obviously, you can only get 1,000-gallon tank, so if you're, Omaha
Yeah.
has a couple of them, I can't remember how many, I think he said they have 6, and they run them right now, possibly. He says they have 1,000-gallon tank, and what did he tell me? I believe it gets filled twice a week right now.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah,
they were gonna, so, yeah, there's, being more efficient and cleaner air is not really working in the advantage to schools.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
That
At
was,
least for
that
student
was a lot
transportation.
of the conversation. There was lots of other good things too. It was very nice to meet and discuss the same issues that all of the schools
Sure.
are having.
Yeah.
So it was, it's happening here in Arlington, it's happening in, Summerlin
You
and,
fill in the blank, yeah.
and Kearney and
Mhm.
everywhere, so.
Well, good. Great to go out there and get new information for all of us. New business. First item in new business is 9.1, discuss, consider, and take necessary action. Did I skip? Well, I've got this red line on.
Yeah, I don't know why that's
Yeah.
on there. Something's
And
going
it's
on with
jumping
yours.
around. So I should have, thanks, Chase. 8.1. Discuss, and consider policy 6930 and appendices, the opioid overdose prevention and response on second reading. This, of course, we did look at last month. Yeah.
So we saw this in May, and this, since it didn't come out of the legislature, but it came out of our policy updates as an optional policy that Perry Law Firm said you could consider adopting anyway. So we are already halfway there. So we're on the right track with that. So you saw it last month. Did anybody have any further questions that can give it any further consideration? Any other questions on that I can try and answer for you?
Nope. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy and appendices 6930 opioid overdose and prevention and response.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shannon and Chase. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Jason Knopf,
Yes.
Betsy Plessner,
Yes.
Chase Cronival,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Moore.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Now, we're in the new business. First item is 9.1, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve increased storage capacity and fixed drainage in the kitchen to be paid with hot lunch excess reserve funds.
Great. And so, we've been working on this throughout the year. There's lots of improvements we've been making in the kitchen, but we kind of got the deadline now that we have to be paid down to a certain amount. So we need to get some of these items moving forward. So in front of you, you've got estimates, and we kind of want to work with the same contractor for both of these issues. So we just don't have too many people trying to work in the kitchen at the same time. So collectively, you have an S&S quality heating and air estimate. That would be, so the dry storage is basically cutting and opening where the dry storage currently is and going deeper into the back room where we demo that boiler room. over Christmas break. So giving them about like a 12 by 14 room there that would house like a 3-door refrigerator, 3-door freezer, and then have additional dry storage, including what they already have. So it really expands that for them. Requires removal of, the opening in the concrete wall, and then we would do like the block walls, so it's consistent with that. They frame that out. And then the second part of that is for drain tile that needs to be fixed, that's breaking out around the stoves and things like that. So first one with S&S Quality, collectively, the estimate on both pieces of work there is $38,200. They're already doing some other things, and they have an estimate for the boiler room too, so keeping that in mind. The second estimate is from, I don't know if this is the order that they're scanned in, I'm just saying them that I have in front of me here, is from Ken McNulty Construction and Woodworking. So those two estimates there collectively amount to $43,800. And then the one that we have we have confidence that all of these can get it done, but Lawrence has done a lot of work with them in the past. They understand school construction. They're the lowest on the storage, but they're maybe a little bit high on the tile, but they're estimating high because they don't know what they're gonna find when they get underneath there. So they're kind of estimating high in case it gets worse. So collectively, that estimate is $43,180. Lawrence and I talked with the Buildings and Grounds Committee beforehand at 6 o'clock before the meeting. You guys have anything else to add before we kind of put our recommendation there? I mean, Lawrence spoke highly of Faust here, and knowing that S&S has already done a couple of other things and the other one is higher, the recommendation Lawrence and I brought to the committee was to accept the estimates from Faust. And so we're both on that. Not being the lowest, but giving consideration to some other things, knowing that if you get in, it will work quickly. And that it could actually be a little bit lower than on the drain if all goes well.
Yeah.
And also know when to stop and back out if it doesn't look like it's going well.
And S&S is already doing some work, right? So
Yeah, they're
this would
already
be like
doing,
in tandem rather than waiting for
Yeah,
them.
they're doing the installation for sure of like the ice chipper and some of that work. The way it's doing the concrete work in there, but they're doing the installation on that, which is, it's not a huge job, but they're already doing some work on that. And they also have an estimate on the boiler room demo. So
Yeah.
concern also is getting everything done, before school starts.
Yeah, the work in the kitchen, the work in the boiler room are basically exclusive, aren't they?
Yeah, it's two different, it would have to be two different, you couldn't do both at the same,
Operations.
you couldn't bounce back and forth and do a little bit here and a little bit there.
Mhm.
Focus, so.
How is the current job S&S been doing?
We have no problems, no issues, they're doing fine.
So the main concern there is just the deadline of getting it done.
Maybe, is it like,
Yeah. I know we've used Faust for some things in the past as well.
Is there an agreement with Faust that if that tile comes in, if that, it goes better than what they're maybe expecting, that that's gonna be less?
There is, not necessarily an agreement, but like, Lawrence has done enough work with them where if it comes in under, if their cost comes in under that, they'll charge us less, but also if they get into the property, because it's not just like some broken tile that doesn't look right, there's like a drainage issue. If they get in there too deep and they think it's going to be way more than that,
They're gonna
they
stop.
will stop and come back to us and not just keep going. And not that we wouldn't have the funds in the excess hot lunch that we have to buy down to keep going, but they wouldn't, they would know like their limitations and say, we can't do this because it's gonna take too long, so we need to come back and do it.
Well, they don't know if the whole thing underneath that tile, when it's evened out,
If
because
it's
it's all
collapsing,
collapsing
yeah.
in there right now.
Yeah.
So they don't have a clue. Till they start ripping out the tile and find out what it is.
Dr. Lewis, as far as impact to the school, if it was not completed outside of school hours, what would that look like, regardless of the company?
You mean if it wasn't done by the time school
Yep.
was finished?
Yep.
Well, I mean, you could still use the storage, we could put like new fridges and freezers in the back room if like if that dry storage wasn't done, but the tile would be, would have to be kind of prepared and put back together so it was usable if they got in there and it was really a mess. And we'd have to like kind of patch it in and wait until they would start like May of next year.
Any health
really,
issues,
and
I
like
would
you'd
think,
almost have
wrapped
to
up
tear
in
out
that.
the floor and start over
Yeah.
them, so, because that would require a lot more than just repairing all that. So it's like a grate that runs in front of the stove, but water drains past there, and so those are great there, but it's collapsing underneath there and it doesn't flow the way it should.
So the drainage would be an issue, but the dry storage would be something that could
They'll
be
be done, I think that'll be done. Yeah, the drainage would be the only, thing. If they got in there and realized it was much worse than I thought. But the storage would be done, I'm confident that would be right.
And SNS is the one that's already doing stuff in the boiler room, is that correct?
There's potential if the board approves the boiler room demo, but they're already doing the installation on the new res machine, which we bought back in last fall.
Oh, okay, so they're already, SNS is the one that's already working in the kitchen.
In a different area.
Mhm.
Okay,
Got a lot going on in the
and
kitchen.
who, yes.
This
and
is what
who
happens when they tell you you have to spend all these funds in the kitchen.
Yeah, so they're already, SNS is already doing things in the kitchen,
Yes,
but it's recommended that we use Faust for the kitchen, is that
Yes.
correct? For the rest of the kitchen, right?
for these other two projects going on in the kitchen. Yes.
Because they're also in contention for the boiler room.
SNS is.
So if
Okay.
they do all of it, that might push the deadline.
Yeah,
And when you look at the boiler room bids, they're the only ones we can,
Yeah.
It's a little.
yeah, that one's,
Yeah.
have they expressed any concern about time frame since they did submit both bids? Do they know that this is supposed to be done? quickly?
They are aware that we want this done in the summer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, they wouldn't submit a bid if they didn't think that they could do it.
Do 3 jobs.
Yeah.
That's-
And they
Because that's what
are,
the concern is, obviously.
yeah,
But there's a
That's
possibility.
the concern, is you ain't gonna get all 3 jobs done.
I also believe that, we needed 3 for the procurement policy to work in the kitchen when you're spending hot lunch funds. Something that's larger than a micro purchase, which these are, you have to have 3 estimates.
Mhm.
And so I fully believe SNS was not expecting to get this, and Lawrence asked them to give him an estimate, so we had the 3 to meet their procurement policy guidelines, so we have to have 3 estimates.
Okay.
I'm sure the Buildings and Grounds Committee
That was one thing I forgot.
chased this one around for quite a while in your meeting, didn't you? Yeah. So,
The school's gonna be starting, so you can say that, but summer's going fast.
I don't read your words right now.
Careful.
Well, he told me just the other day that, yeah, we're only like, what, 10 days away from the long days, longest day of the year.
Still talking.
And then it
It's true.
gets shorter from there.
Yeah.
Here comes Christmas.
Yeah.
would, somebody on the Buildings and Grounds Committee like to make a motion here?
I'll make a motion.
The collective amount with cost was $43,180.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the bid from Faust Construction for an amount not to exceed $43,180 for increased storage and tile damage repair using excess federal funds from hot lunch.
Second.
Okay, Shannon and Jason, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion here before we move on to the vote? Let's vote, please.
Cassie Flussman,
Yes.
Chase Credible,
No.
Brian
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Bowman.
Yes.
Jay Smith.
Yes. All right, very good. Motion carries. We respect everybody's position. Item 9.2, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve contract to remove old boilers to be paid from general funds and facilities. And click here on these estimates. They are very interesting.
And we went over these again in the buildings and grounds meeting beforehand. So SNS quality heating. This is one we're talking about. Their estimate was $30,425, which is honestly about what I anticipated. They did say there might be a little bit of excess if they have to finagle around the gas lines a little bit, if they have to reroute anything, but they would let us know in advance what that would cost. But this would be for the actual removal of the boilers there. And then we had a bid from Midlands Mechanical, who estimated the job at $177,600. Of that, the demo and removal of the 2 boilers and associated piping, which would be your apples to apples, was $150,500. So those are basically your 2 pieces of consideration. The $30,425 or the $150,500. What the committee talked about a little bit too is we've been talking about this for a long time.
We have.
We've walked into that room every year since I've been here and looked at them,
Since we took the chillers out
since we took the chillers out.
6 years ago.
And so this started before I was here.
Yeah.
Now we're really in a position where we really need the storage.
Mhm.
We're looking for places to stash things away and not things that we could be getting rid of, things that get used on a regular basis. Portable tables, racks of chairs, ball racks, all sorts of things like that. Yeah, paper, yes, paper when it comes in on pallets. And we just are out of places to put those
Need the
things.
square footage,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's
and so-
wasting space right now because you can't even walk through there without
Yeah,
dumping your dog in on it.
but if those 2 boilers are in there, or
Yeah.
not in there anymore, you have lots of storage
Mhm.
space. And you can't construct a storage shed for $30,425. And if you did, it wouldn't be on site. It would be
Yeah.
someplace else. So.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a much, it's already under our roof and accessible.
Right.
It's there and it's secure, so. I this has kind of been on my radar ever since we put our rooftop units in and got rid of the boilers and the chillers, that we should be able to do something with that space, so. I'm on board with this. It's exciting to finally get it going. Anybody thoughts? Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the bid from SNS Quality Heating to remove the old boilers for an amount not to exceed $30,425 paid from general fund and facilities.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brian. It's been moved and seconded. Do we want to talk about it anymore? No, let's vote.
Chase Credible.
Yes.
Ryan Locker.
Yes.
Matt O'Daniel.
Yes.
Shannon Homeland. Jason Stark.
Yes.
Chelsea Cluster.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion carries. Let's see. Item 9.3, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve purchase of refrigerator and freezer to be paid from hot lunch excess reserve funds.
And Mrs. French had both of her knees removed, so she's kind of been out of communication around it, but I did manage to get from her that she prefers the first 2 on the list of estimates you have there. So from Continental, the model numbers are on there. The 3-door reach-in refrigerator for the price of $9,964. And the upraised reach-in freezer 3-door also for $12,893. And we talked about, as we were going through this, the different options, which have been increasing what we already have in the walk-ins, and without costing upwards of $30,000 before, and that's to take space away from the front of the kitchen, or to go well into the $70,000 to $80,000 to go out the back. You have to blow out the back wall and reconstruct back there and go in that. These are much more cost-effective options. for both of those, and,
Yeah.
Julia's been here for 30-some years, and when she tells me this is the fridge I want, and this is the freezer I want, and we have the money to buy them, I think those are the ones we should go with. And we have plenty of other estimates there, but these are just a little bit bigger, and they're the ones that she wants. So,
How much money is left in that account? Or like,
So they want us to spend down our reserves to 157,000. If you look at that balance in there, over 250, it's 247 now. It was on the financials.
okay, so we have to get down, we need to get down to 157,000. Okay.
That's where they want us.
Spending money.
By the end of, I mean, yes, it makes us
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but this is the
Yeah.
one area right now where I'm like,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And then, I mean, Julie hasn't asked for anything in a lot of years, and now she's gonna have new serving lines, and she's gonna have more storage.
Mhm.
And things are gonna be refreshed and fixed up, and everything is gonna be up to code and in compliance, so.
Where does the old stuff go? Like, do we have to sell it? Do we trash it? What do we?
Well,
do
we're
with that?
keeping the old refrigerator and freezer, so we're not removing, because we're creating
getting
that
more.
extra room. Yeah, because we can't increase what we have for the walk-in cooler or the walk-in freezer, so
Mhm.
we're adding
Okay.
those, so we're not getting rid of that. We did, try and get rid of the old serving lines, and a couple people came and looked at them, but I think eventually we ended up on them for scrap, because nobody was interested in them. But typically what we do, we put them out.
Yeah.
We do some Facebook advertising and word of mouth. If it was something like these freezers or fridges or something like that, we'd probably talk to like Continental and see if they might put a camp or something like that. But we're not getting rid of a fridge or a freezer on these, we're keeping them.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
What's the?
Yes, the two of them together, yes.
22,857.
I'll make a motion to purchase weekend refrigerator and freezer for combined amount not to exceed 22,857 to be paid from excess federal funds and hot lunch account.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded for discussion. Let's vote.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt Daniel,
Yes.
Shannon Wilmot, Jason Art,
Yes.
Nancy Klesner,
Yes.
Chase Scriven.
Yes.
Very good. Motion carries. We're on a roll. Item 9.4, discuss, consider, and take necessary action to approve the 22-23 audit engagement documents.
So there's two documents on here this time, and when I visited with Brenda about them, there's a lot more requirements than there have been in the past. That's why the letter is longer. And she said, we're advised to ask for 3-year engagement. She said, we're committed to being your auditors for the next 3 years, but with things changing and the potential of a single audit, they've been told to just do year-by-year engagements right now. And so this has got all of the scope, the objectives, everything in it. It's almost kind of hard to find the dollar amount at the end. So, but if you get way to the bottom of the 5th page, you will see our fee for these services will be at discounted hourly rates plus out-of-pocket costs. Will not exceed $29,200. $9,200 of that relates to single audit procedures. Now, if in the process of the audit, it's determined that we're under the threshold requiring a single audit, which means spent less than $750,000 in federal funds. That's the threshold, not for receipts, but for spend. So this is where the conundrum happens, right? Because federal funds are in the lunch account that they're telling us that we have to spend. And we also had to commit all of our escrow funds by the end of this year. A lot of that was spent in the previous year, though. I feel like we're going to be under the single audit, so but I'm not the auditor. I'm not going through everything. My threshold that I had us for expenditures when it came to federal funds, minus the hot lunch account, was about $400,000 this year, and that's with IDEA, That was with Title I and II, and that is with all of the ESER's codes. So I think we're gonna be under, I think we'll be all right, but she had to build that in case. Which brings the actual cost of the audit to $20,000, which is kind of tracking. It's been, I think the first year of the engagement was 14 and it was going up about $3,000 a year. And it's been about that. It's even been slightly over with some overages and things like that. But roughly the past couple of years, what we've spent on the audit has been between $18,000 and $22,000. So kind of tracks with that. And then the second letter you have attached to that, they've been told to do a second one because there's new requirements, additional testing that they have to do as far as average daily membership, average daily attendance, and some other things. So if you pull up
I
the
saw that, yeah.
procedures one, if you pull up in the procedures letter, these are new requirements that the Department of Education is requiring of the auditors. You go to the third page of that. So policies and procedures for collecting student membership and attendance data, census data, the daily data collected, attendance data collected to the nearest hundredth of a day, cumulative attendance membership. I mean, they've been doing these, but it's been in their overages. So now they've been told to do a separate procedures letter for that outside of the regular audit because they're doing more of these things than they had to in the past. And it took extra time.
So now they're including it in the original scope of the audit.
Yeah, so they're almost,
Understand that, right?
yeah, a little bit, but there's an additional fee. It's less than $1,000. I think it was 900 and
900 to 1,200.
between $900 and $1,200 for those, for that additional testing. Because they're not like typical audit things.
So they were doing it before and it was included, and now they're still
Well,
doing it, but they're charging us for
They
it?
were doing it before, but it was one of those extra things that they charged us for, like the cost of the audit was this, and then they just sent us a separate bill for those testing things. Now they're actually upfront telling us what the additional will be.
Oh.
So we've always paid for it.
We've always paid more for it. Now they're doing the separate engagement letter for it.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Lewis, how long have we used this CPA firm?
This will be the 4th year.
Have we ever, when was the last time, I know obviously this is Shopple and Everett's bid, have we ever bid it out competitively
Yes.
recently?
3 years ago when we first, so this is, we got the 3-year engagement from them. At the time, I directly contacted 4 different audit firms because we knew their partner was retiring. And Shopple and Everett was the only one that responded. Nobody else was interested in school audits. And you can see it's the extra work. So there's not a lot of firms that are taking on additional ones.
I think it's important for consistency in the school audit, because then you can see if improvements were made.
Yeah.
Or if they weren't made, but.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've increased a lot over the past couple of years too.
Yeah.
Everybody else, it seems like.
Yeah. They have.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve agreement with Shaw Hull and Everett CPAs for the 2022-2023 audit components as presented.
One second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Chase. Is there any more discussion? Let's vote, please.
Excuse me, Shannon Bowman,
Yes.
Jason Arnold,
Yes.
Cassie Plessner,
Yes.
Tracy Carnival,
Yes.
Brian Locker,
Yes.
Matt O'Donnell.
Yes. Motion carries. Moves us into our first reading of many policies, item 9.5. I think I'll kind of hand this off to you, Dr. Lewis,
Well, the good news is you'll get to see them again.
right?
So, I'm just going to kind of, they're listed out there for you. I'm not going to read through the finer details because some of them are just amendments to existing ones. And I'm just going to refer you to the actual memo from Perry Law Firm. And I do have a couple printed out in the ones that are a little bit more important, had different changes to them that really are changing either our handbook or some of our procedures that we have to do here. So the first one listed is 1101. This was, it was referred to as the Boy Scouts one, but it's really, there's a collective group of organizations that are approved under federal guidelines. We have to allow them access to school during learning time. We can't tell them feel free to greet our kids at the door in the morning and pass out your literature, or, you know, or we'll distribute it for you. You have to allow them time if they request access to come in and visit with children in schools. 5,004 and 5,103 are for basically part-time enrollment students. So if you've got homeschooled students, they used to have to attend, first it was half-time to be able to participate in high school activities, and then it was 2 classes, and now it's 1 class. So they just have to be enrolled in 1 class now to participate in activities. And then there's really nothing real specific about there, but basically it says they only have to be enrolled in 1 class to participate in activities, and I don't know if this was a change or not, but it was redlined. They're not entitled to transportation to and from, so we don't have to go from not wherever their home school site is and bring them here to participate. That's their own responsibility. 5,006, resolution and sample letter that won't be effective this year, but we need to get the policy in place. We will have to, when it comes to sped capacities for option enrollment, our capacities mostly have been filled based on what our staff can handle and things like that. Now, you cannot just not accept a student because they have an IEP. You now have to examine the IEP and look at what the accommodations are and be specific in a denial letter to an option student that because you have a specific learning area, disability in the area of reading that requires pull-out classroom instruction. Our pull-out is full, and so you have to be more specific with that. Finer details of that, Dr. Morgan's Fed director, we've been talking, it's gonna be tricky because that means they almost have to provide a portion of the IEP with their option paperwork, because how else are we going to know what actual goals have been written and what the accommodations page looks like and how many minutes per week and do they require a para and things like that. So we don't know the finer details of how you're going to be able to access the information, because only one school can access the students in the reporting system that is statewide that we use, that they sponsor SRS. Only one school can look at that. So basically if they're trying to option in, they'd have to give you SRS access, which means the school that they're currently in can't have it.
With who's access.
Yeah, so we don't know.
Platform.
We'll have to.
Yeah, I don't know what.
So we're not sure how that's going to work. But anyway, so that's going to make that just a little bit trickier. 5101 is the student discipline. This is the one where it does make some changes to notification of like an out-of-school suspension, a long-term suspension, short-term suspension, and it's not a significant change to like the notifications and things like that. Significantly, what it changes is that you can't, unless they brought a weapon to school or like threatened to harm everybody in the school or something like that. If a student is in kindergarten first or second grade, pre-kindergarten through second grade, they cannot be placed in out-of-school suspension. So you have to keep them in school, which out-of-school suspension pretty much is, that's, you brought a weapon to school as part of work. It takes quite a bit to look like high school. It looks a little different, but if you're that age, it can take something pretty serious. So we're working through that, and we'll have another month to look at that too. And the same thing with alternative education, and I'll have to kind of go over this with Erin. It says the school may provide an alternative education plan, and the student who is being expelled may choose to participate in an alternative education plan, and if they don't, so I'm not exactly sure how that changes what we're doing right now. If you expel a student, you're still responsible for their education, so you would have to find like an alternate placement or something like that. Typically is how that works, or you have to provide them resources to complete their education and just not enroll them. So this one basically says the school could do that, but the student doesn't have to do it. So not quite sure how that's all going to look. It's just how the law was written. Then you got the policy for financial literacy. which our students already take a financial literacy course, another policy would be in place. 6212 is assessments and content standards. We don't need to re-adopt this because the last time we reviewed policy 6212, we actually amended it and put the correct dates in there. The last time they were revised. So the last official one that came out from Perry Law Firm still had the old dates in it. We as a board revised it and put the correct adopted standard dates in it. So what they're sending out now is what we adjusted last time and fixed it already. So we don't really need to do that one again. 6215 is the dyslexia reporting. We're not quite sure how that will work yet, but we're going to be required to report. The Department of Education has been reported to the legislature data on dyslexia collected by the school districts, initiations, phasing, secret clubs, and outside organizations. It's a change to the not actual content of the policy, but a statute has been repealed that no longer has a bearing on that. So it's only taking the legal reference off of the bottom of that, the outdated legal reference. 6600 is the updates to the special education policies. 6700 clarifies that even though concealed carry is now allowed without a permit, it is still not permissible on school property, in school vehicle, at a school event, anything like that. So that we might want to consider posting that a little bit more, like you still can't bring or concealed weapon into a school. Okay, in case people are confused about that. Policy 6921, seizure safe schools. This is a clarification. We adopted a policy on seizure safe schools last year. We trained everyone on seizure safe schools, and now it's saying only one person per building needs to be trained. So this clarifies that we didn't need to train.
We're wasting
Everybody's time. So we're good. And that was kind of a longer one too. It was not through Safe Schools, it was through the School Nurses Association. And it took probably like an hour and a half on that training versus like the 20 minutes that the other ones take. Policy 6930 basically says that you have to have behavioral health points of contact, and they have to be listed in your handbooks. So we'll be on top of that. And then 8130 is the annual organization meeting. I'm seeking clarification on that. Because typically we just do president, vice president, recording secretary, and the secretary of the board.
Yeah.
But it's making reference
The
to,
treasurer.
treasurer. It says in statute, it says you have to do treasurer, but when I read the actual statute, it only mentions secretary. So I'm seeking clarification on that.
Okay.
But if they say we have to adopt this policy because it's a mandatory one, but I'm still seeking clarification on what that means. So those are the mandatory ones. That's the first reading on the mandatory ones.
These will be back next month
They will be back.
for your review and pleasure.
Right.
Yeah.
Something.
Thoughts, comments before we jump into the next group? Okay, we'll look at them again next month. 9.9 or 9.6, these are optional policy updates, so
Mhm.
these warrant a little bit of conversation, I think.
Yeah, they do. Like resignation of certificated employees, we already have. Like if they haven't resigned by, is it like a contract control? But we have a policy, I think it's after April 15th, we don't have to release them from their contracts. But the signed resignation, with the deadline, I don't think that we need this one because I think we have a policy in place that covers this. Because we send out, we did away with the letter of intent because they told us we were being redundant, but we do have a deadline on the contracts and a policy that says that if they haven't signed them by April 15th, no, if they haven't signed them by the date they come back, we can advertise their position, but we don't have to release them from the contract after April 15th.
Okay.
So I think we've got policies in place and we're good.
Because that's a state date, right?
Yes, that's the state date, that's the statutory date.
So then this March 15th, is that an error? Are they recommending?
You can ask for them to be returned no sooner than March 15th, but you don't have to release them from their contracts after April 15th.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's our timeline too. We usually ask for them back sometime around, like if the 15th falls on a weekend, we usually have them out and say have them back to us by the 17th or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would agree though,
Yeah.
that if we already have something and then the April 15th is just, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. The naloxone, we've already got a policy in place, we just adopted that, so we don't
Right.
need this one as well. Artificial intelligence is the one that has me the most concerned, and I think all of our teachers
I had to
concerned
laugh.
and our
Like,
principals
seriously?
concerned. It's a thing. You can tell it, write me a paper in the
I know.
style of Shakespeare about how to change the oil in my car, and it will write you sonnets on how to change the oil in your car.
And it writes as if a student wrote it. So
Right.
there are some that like it puts in clerical errors and you're like,
I don't know how you're gonna
You
tell.
can tell
Can
it.
you tell it?
You
like, how
can
many
tell it to
errors
make
to
it
make
tell it,
errors?
I want to get a
Yes.
92%.
Just
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
You can have, or you
Yeah.
can put a zoom on.
Where was this when I was in college?
So I will tell
you
you,
can tell the difference. It's
we did
scary.
have a teacher this year who identified a student who first wrote a paper using artificial intelligence, got caught, was given the opportunity to write it on his own, and turned in another paper that was written. And the teacher,
How do they know?
Yeah, how do they know?
How do they know?
you know what, you
You know
gotta
what
talk
your
to that
kids
shark
can
teacher,
write.
Oh, good
because
point.
I haven't, but he knew. And
Wow, this
So
is
if
really
you
good.
don't
You're
tell
not
them
that
to
good.
build in spelling errors and that sort of thing, it writes very well, and then you're like, you
Yeah.
did not write that thing.
That's a good point, yeah.
Prove it.
Write it right now and show me
Do
that
you
you
even
know
know
how
what
to spell
this
that
word
word.
is?
Exactly. Tell me what rudimentary means.
So in my opinion, it could fall under the umbrella of our academic integrity policy in
Sure.
the handbook.
Yeah.
But it might not be a bad idea to have this policy on artificial intelligence. So I'm willing to talk about it again for another month. I mean, this one could absolutely come back.
I feel like it's kind of a necessary.
Like, we need to
Yeah.
take the stand, like,
Yeah.
artificial intelligence is not your intelligence.
I
Like,
think
knowing
it's
how to use
not
a
a
piece
bad
of
idea
technology.
for things to be black and white. And,
Right.
I mean, it could be academic integrity, but this makes it black and white. Like, we have covered this, so.
I think you need to address this sooner rather than later.
I'm with you on that.
Completely
Because
agree.
I've seen it and I've used it and it's crazy.
Mr. Pinkston, you got,
I agree. It gives it another level of importance to address.
Yeah, I would agree.
makes it easier for us to manage and,
It's,
yeah,
it's specific to what is out there
Mhm.
as opposed to, well, you know, did you want to change the
Yeah.
answer quiz? They're all academic integrity, but this is specific to something that is, it's out there and it's a way for kids to not do and show their own work.
Mhm. So obviously, this is the recommended language or the language that you guys have preferred. Understand? Okay. And these will come back to us next month as
Yes,
well, if you
these will
want
come
to
back next month, yes.
have any thoughts and modify this a little bit, or
Right.
any of the board members have ideas and thoughts, but yeah, it's a new thing, you know, we need to get out in front of it, I feel like, so.
So this is going to be a school policy, or we're proposing it. Will it also be included in whatever we're talking about?
Handbook?
The handbook, thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Will,
so it'll be in multiple places.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
And
and we'll hear it.
I'll bet it is verbalized
Yes.
to our.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, it's like,
Young
okay, it's in the
workers,
handbook, or I didn't sign the policy, I signed the handbook, you know? I can see this
Yeah.
happening.
And then they just put a few other things on their consideration that did not come with policies yet, but things that are becoming or that other schools have run into issues with, telehealth appointments at school, the NAL, for high school students, those are different things that have no policies yet. Banning of cell phones in classrooms, book challenges, flag displays in classrooms, Coffee Act policy is maybe one that we could consider. I think we're still okay. Our limit is $50 on that, but they said there's no statutory limit. So if you feel like with rising costs, you want to increase that to like $75 or whatever, you could do that.
What is that?
The Coffee Act policy basically tells you what you can, like, if, for like board celebrations or something like that, you can spend up to $50 per an event per board member, like a meeting
Out
or
of
something like that.
Public funds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you just have to have in policy what you will allow for expenditures per employee or per board member.
Gotcha.
The act.
Okay.
Employee relationships, just because of personnel matters, I feel like that's in our staff handbooks as well, things like
You're
that.
comfortable with how,
And it's in the code of ethics and things like that. And then future student dress code changes, we'll have to take a look at that. I know that was really stemming out of a student that, was protesting a piece of hair that was cut, you know, in school, like they couldn't give a haircut, and so it kind of spawned into all of these dress code things. But I mean, I believe we're comfortable with our dress code, but we do look at it every year and say, maybe we should be considering adding that to our dress code or whatever, and it does get enforced to the best of our abilities. As a school year goes. So anyway, they didn't offer us any new policies as far as those other things, just things that we can consider as those policies come up.
so you're telling us that those are things on the radar and as these
Yes.
policies come
Mhm.
forward. we need to-
Yeah, they're not in policy yet, but, and then they said there were no updates to, the Open Meetings Act, so we won't need a new poster there. Jen already has the new posters for FLSA and FMLA to adopt and post or repost those. And then it went to the LD 75, which I did. So I will keep
Yeah,
artificial intelligence, naloxone, we're 2 months ahead of them on that, so we've already got one, and we'll probably drop the resignation. So next month, I'll bring back artificial intelligence with the other policies that we need to adopt on second reading.
I think that's what I heard.
Sound good?
All right, yeah, of course, there's no action on this. They'll be back next month. So meeting is adjourned at 8:42, 8:41.
And we need a picture.
Don't forget, who do you need pictures from?
You.
Everybody.
I saw that.
And